everyone, welcome to another Book Talk Wednesdays. So today I want to share some books with you that were made into movies, and maybe you didn't realize that some of these movies were based on books, so maybe I'll surprise you. So most of the books I'm sharing, they're all middle grade books, and most of them are like fantasy books. So that makes an exciting movie, right? So that's why a lot of those kinds of books get turned into movies. So the first one, I'm sure you've heard of this movie. It just came out in June on Disney Plus. It's Artemis Fowl. So I will say that the book Artemis Fowl is very different than the movie Artemis Fowl. So you should definitely still read the book even though you've seen the movie. So Artemis Fowl is a genius, but he's also the son of a criminal mastermind. So can we really expect him to use his genius for good? After Artemis's father goes missing, causing his mother to kind of lose her mind, Artemis is pretty much on his own. He spends all his time with his bodyguard Butler and Juliet, Butler's sister. So when Artemis begins to study fairies, he becomes consumed with finding their secret book. He knows he will need it if he's going to be the first person ever to get his hands on some fairy gold. And you won't believe it, but Artemis does manage to find a copy of that book. And not only that, he manages to translate it. After reading the fairy book, Artemis knows all of their secrets and comes up with a plan. All he needs to do now is kidnap a fairy. So Holly Short is a test. She's one of the first female LEP, Lower Elements Police, recon agents, and she is trying hard to prove herself worthy. Unfortunately, this means she has neglected the ritual, the process needed to rejuvenate her magic. So she is running on very low magic, and when she takes on a troll, it drops to E. So no more magic for Holly Short. Another mistake that Holly Short makes is deciding on the wrong tree to complete the ritual. So after she loses her magic, she's ordered to go do the ritual right away. And she heads to a certain tree because she has to get an acorn from an ancient oak and replant it in the ground during a full moon. And the tree, that ancient oak she chose to go to, just so happens to be the same ancient oak that Artemis and Butler have staked out. So Artemis finally has his fairy, and when he captures Holly Short and traps her in his house, an all-out war breaks out at the Fowl estate. Artemis knows all their secrets, but the fairies still have a few surprises up their sleeves. So who will win? Fairies or Artemis Fowl? Read Artemis Fowl to find out. All right, so this one was one that surprised me when I found out this movie was based on a book. The movie Home, a DreamWorks animated movie about an alien and a girl going on a journey. And it was inspired by this book, The True Meaning of Smekday by Adam Rex. So this was a big surprise for me, and maybe it is for you too. And hopefully I'll inspire you to read the book and see how it compares to the movie. So when Gratuity, Tip Tucci, is asked to write a 5-page essay about the true meaning of Smekday, she ends up sharing a little more than just 5 pages. Tip describes what happened when the Boov, an alien race that invaded and conquered Earth, forced all of the humans in America to move to Florida. On moving day, Tip decides to avoid the Boov shuttles transporting everyone from her home in Philadelphia to Florida and drive herself instead. You may be thinking, how is a middle schooler going to drive herself to Florida? But that is not actually the problem. Tip is a great driver. But unfortunately for her, the Boov have destroyed the highways. So Tip doesn't get very far. Now you might be wondering why Tip is by herself anyway. Why isn't her mom the one driving them to Florida? Or better yet, convincing her to just take the shuttle like everyone else. Well, Tip's mom was abducted by the Boov shortly before they arrived on Earth. They brought her onto their ship, made her fold laundry, and then put a big, weird mole on the back of her neck. Naturally, Tip didn't really believe her mom was abducted, but she did believe that the mole was dangerous, and her mother needed to see a doctor about it. Unfortunately, they never had the chance, because when the Boov came to Earth, they vacuumed Tip's mother into one of their ships, never to be seen again. As you can probably imagine, after that experience, Tip does not underestimate how dangerous the Boov really are. So when she meets one at a convenience store after she ruins her car on the destroyed road, she'd rather not take any chances. Unfortunately, the two end up in a standoff that requires them to make a truce. And now Tip is forced to trust the Boov, named J-Lo, to repair her car and then somehow travel with him all the way to Florida. And that is just the beginning of the adventure that Tip and J-Lo are about to have. So that is the true meaning of Smekday, which inspired Home. All right, so this one may be a little more obscure. I don't know if you've heard of this movie before. It's a Studio Ghibli film called Howl's Moving Castle, and it was inspired by this book with the same title by Dianna Wynne Jones. It's a really great movie and a really great book, but they're pretty different, so you can enjoy both of them. Sophie Hatter is the eldest of 3 siblings, and in her world, a world full of magic, wizards, witches, and demons, that means she is doomed to a life of bad luck and failure. When their father dies, Sophie and her sisters, Martha and Letty, are sent off to learn trades. Martha is an apprentice at Cesari's, the bakery. Letty is learning magic from an old friend of their stepmother. And Sophie remains at the hat shop helping her stepmother run the family business. Now one day, while alone in the shop, the Witch of the Waste, a centuries-old witch who's believed to have kidnapped both the king's wizard and brother, confronts Sophie and puts a spell on her. So this crazy, scary, pretty evil witch comes and puts a spell on Sophie. Talk about unlucky, right? When Sophie realizes the spell has turned her into an old woman, whoa, she just went from the age of 17 to like 90. She decides it is time to leave and seek her fortune. Really, it's a doomed task, but what more can go wrong for her? In need of rest after a long couple days of walking, Sophie finds herself in the castle of the wizard Howl, whose moving castle has been terrifying the citizens of Market Chipping, which is Sophie's town, along with rumors that the wizard Howl eats the hearts of young women. But Sophie's no longer young, so she has nothing to be afraid of, right? So she stays at the castle and becomes a member of the strange family that lives there. Sophie, Howl, there's a young apprentice named Michael, and a fire demon named Calcifer. And they all live in this moving castle that has entrances that go to all different towns. And while Sophie lives in this castle, annoying everyone with her cleaning. She learns a lot about Howl, the Witch of the Waste, their magic, and even some surprising and magical things about herself. So that's Howl's Moving Castle by Dianna Wynne Jones. And then finally, we get to a delightful Cinderella retelling that was made into a pretty fun Miramax film, Ella Enchanted by Gail, Carson, Levine. Now this one is also very different from the movie, so you gotta, even if you've seen the movie and loved it, you should definitely read the book because I think you'll have a whole new experience. So when Ella is born, a well-meaning fairy named Lucinda bestows upon Ella a gift. But really, she cursed Ella. She gave her the gift of obedience, which turns out to be a big curse because she has to obey anything anyone tells her to do. So when Ella turns 15, her mother dies, and her mother was kind and tried her best to protect her from the curse. But even with her mother gone, Ella is still forced to obey any order that someone gives her. And honestly, she's had enough. So when she's forced to travel to finishing school with her 2 new stepsisters, and they discover her curse, Ella quickly becomes miserable. Her only respite is letters sent between her and Prince Char, who she became fast friends with after meeting him on the day of her mother's funeral. When Char writes that he will be attending a giant's wedding and hopes that fairies will also be in attendance, Ella decides to set off on a quest to find Lucinda and freedom from the curse. So she realizes, I was told that I had to go to finishing school, but I wasn't told I had to stay at finishing school. So she takes off to go to this giant wedding and hopefully find Lucinda. But of course, when you're a girl who must follow any order you are given, things are bound to go awry. Will Ella find Lucinda? Will she ever be free of the curse? Find out in Ella Enchanted. So those are some great middle grade books that you may not have known were turned into movies or were based on movies that you have known all about and really liked. So I hope you'll check the books out and enjoy them as much as the movies. I also just wanted to show you a couple other books that might surprise you were actually the inspiration for movies. Shrek. This one was pretty unbelievable to me. So Shrek, the movie, was based on this picture book by William Steig. Boss Baby. Can you believe it? The Boss Baby by Marla Frazee inspired the movie Boss Baby. I don't know if you know of Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. They made several movies out of that one, I think, too. So that is based on a series of picture books by Judy Barrett. And one of my favorites, Jumanji. So all of those Jumanji movies, the original one from the 90s and the new ones that just recently came out, are getting their inspiration from this book, Jumanji by Chris Van Allensburg. Can you believe it? So many books are actually based on, or so many movies are actually based on books. Pretty cool, right? See you.